Hey guys, welcome back. Before we get started, I just want to apologize for not putting any videos out last week. I got pretty overwhelmed with Thanksgiving prep. I had to finish painting cabinets in the kitchen, which took a while. And then we decorated for Christmas on Saturday. And then Sunday, we went and looked for a new car for my girlfriend. So I've been pretty busy and just didn't have the energy. So I'm sorry about that. This is more of an apology to myself, I guess, than to you guys. But just wanted to say that. Anyways, we're going to pick up where we left off with Chaos Space Marines and get started on the Black Crusades. Perhaps once in 10 generations, a truly great champion of chaos will arise in the depths of the Eye of Terror. Through the power of his implacable will and the favor of the dark gods, this champion brings about an unsteady alliance between the infernal scions of the warp, drawing together a terrifying army of Chaos Space Marines, demons, mutants, and renegades. The hell forges of the demon worlds echo with the clang of monstrous machines and dark industry, churning out armor and weapons for the Chosen One's followers. Demon engines are roused from their embittered slumbers, and warring factions vie for command of the massed ranks of Chaos Space Marines. When a Black Crusade is finally launched, the warp vomits forth the diabolical hordes of chaos. Armies of demons, huge, twisted monsters the size of buildings, numberless masses of cultists, wild tribes of mutants, and ancient and terrifying chaos titans. Spearheading these nightmarish hosts are the Chaos Space Marine legions, united behind their champion in their desire to wreak untold destruction upon the hated Imperium. The most dangerous of these Black Crusades are those led by Abaddon the Despoiler. 13 times has Abaddon rampaged from the demon worlds of the Eye of Terror to wreak havoc upon his mortal enemies, each time plunging into the Imperium like an envenomed blade. Every attack has sent the Imperium reeling, and ravaged worlds close to the eye. But the 13th Crusade dwarfs all those that have gone before. Many Imperial strategos have theorized that the first 12 campaigns were mere precursors to the current invasion, each seemingly unrelated event leading to a single bloody moment: the invasion of Terra. The Crimson Path. Abaddon intends to succeed where his predecessor Horus failed, breaking the Imperial Palace wide open and tearing the Emperor's rotting corpse from the Golden Throne. The Despoiler has proven himself, beyond any doubt, to be the chosen champion of the Chaos Gods, and he has spent many years calling in old alliances, striking demonic bargains, and invoking ancient pacts with the traitor legions. Thread by tenuous thread, he has woven a web of allegiance that unites the scattered and maniacal planets of the Eye under his banner. Abaddon is confident that he can eventually smash open the Cadian system and flood into Segmentum Solar with an unprecedented number of warships. But driving his invasion across the stars to Terra is another matter. Such an act would spur so many chapters of the Adeptus Augustus Astartes to marshal against him, that the crusade would be forced into a stalemate. As tempting as a grinding, brutal war of attrition is, it cannot be allowed to come to pass. Instead, Abaddon is throwing his might into the Cadian Gate. His plan is for his warriors to bring about so much death and destruction that his demonic allies can breach real space wherever they wish, and be sustained indefinitely by the unbridled mayhem that rages around them. The demolition of the strange black monoliths that dot Cadia's surface is a priority. Every augur and omen Abaddon sorcerers have consulted suggested that the pylons are instrumental in holding open the Cadian Gate. Once the demon legions begin to spill out of the eye, the protective perimeters of Cadia will be breached forever, and the manifold armies of chaos will be free to pour into real space like blood from a deep wound. In short, Abaddon intends to tear open the gates of hell. Those traitor legions and renegade chapters who have sworn allegiance to the War Master are forming the vanguard of the invasion, a broad-headed spear to plunge deep into the heart of the Cadian system. Abaddon cares little how many casualties are amassed on each side. His only concern is that enough blood be spilled to saturate the Cadian battlefields and summon the demonic armies to his cause. This is a strategy Abaddon can then see play out on world after world, each planetary invasion taking the Chaos Space Marines closer to Terra, with the armies of the Demon Lords following in their wake. As the Crimson Path drives ever closer to the heart of the Imperium, the devastation they cause will allow even the most powerful beings, such as the Demon Primarchs, to re-enter real space, sustained by the carnage wrought by Abaddon's vanguard. Once Cadia is reduced to ruin, the Eye of Terror itself can be drawn onwards by the irresistible pull of chaos. Spilling out behind the 13th Black Crusade until it stretches towards the holy seat of the Emperor himself. Meanwhile, dozens of the renegade chapters that lurk in the Maelstrom will pour out into Segmentum Solar, forcing the loyalist Space Marines to spread themselves thin as they fight a war on dozens of different fronts. Abaddon's plan is of such unimaginable scale and ambition that it could only have come from a visionary leader. It may even yet come to pass. If the despoiler is successful, the Eye of Terror will grow, expanding out towards Terra along the Crimson Path, driving a talon of unreality into Segmentum Solar forevermore, and bringing doom to the Imperium. The High Lords of Terra live in constant fear of Abaddon's vision coming to fruition, and are sending every military force they can muster to the Cadian Gate as soon as they can get them there. As the drama plays out to its desperate conclusion, just one thing is certain. There is only war. The Long War. The Long War has raged for 10,000 years. The bitterness and spite of the Chaos Space Marines has spread throughout the galaxy, spilling from the warp and bleeding back again for time immemorial. Though the Inquisition takes great pains to quell reports of chaos incursions in order to spare the common populace from unconventional thought, the legends and records persist across the galaxy, handed down through the generations by the foolish brave. 31st Millennium. Circa M31, the Great Crusade. The Emperor rises from the anarchy of sundered Terra and creates the Primarchs. The first Space Marines are created in turn. With the warp storms that isolated Terra dissipated, the Emperor goes forth into the galaxy. Over the course of campaigns unnumbered, the Emperor's legions unite mankind. The Imperium of Man is born. M31, the Horus Heresy. The galaxy is torn by bitter rebellion. Horus and his traitor Primarchs lay waste to the legions of Astartes, and all but overthrow the Emperor of Mankind. The forces of chaos are eventually hurled back from Terra, and most are driven into the Eye of Terror. M31. The long war begins. Thirsty for revenge, the Chaos Space Marines strike out against the Imperium from the depths of the Eye of Terror. The adepts of the Administratum are horrified to find that the number of their invasions consistently increases with every passing decade. 781 of the 31st Millennium. The first Black Crusade of War Master Abaddon. War Master Abaddon makes many bloody pacts with the Dark Powers. On Urlon, Abaddon discovers the demon sword Drachnian after battling his way through the haunted labyrinth to the great inner chamber where the blade has languished in stasis for millennia. The howling blade contains the bound essence of a dangerous warp entity who has the power to rend reality apart wherever the weapon strikes. After the recovery of the malefic sword, Abaddon's power swells to inhuman proportions. 32nd Millennium. Circa 400 of the 32nd Millennium. Perturabo's Plague. The demon Primarch Perturabo perverts the 8 rituals of possession, turning them against his enemies. Invoking Nurgle, Perturabo imbues his curse with extreme contagion and releases it into the mechanical systems of toil, a vassal forge world. The raw chaos spreads through the machines, and the hidden manufactoriums begin to change. On the 8th day, giant cables burst from the earth, demonic machines hunt the living, and many-legged cathedrals of industry prowl the wastes. The planet is ultimately scoured of all native flesh. 33rd Millennium. Circa 112 of the 33rd Millennium. The Feral War. Whilst mining the feral world of Agaros, the Adeptus Mechanicus engage in what at first seems like an embarrassingly one-sided battle. That is, until the primitives bring their flame-tongued shamans into the fray. The armies of the Adeptus Mechanicus find themselves burnt from the inside, or crushed flat by invisible forces. The retreating tech priests call in an old dead from the Relictors in order to renew the attack. 4 days later, the Relictors' third company fights its way through psychic pyrotechnics of bewildering force to reach the hidden city of the primitive tribes. Lining every road are dust-caked statues of the 1,000 Suns, each facing a colossal effigy of Ahriman atop a pyramid of obsidian. Captain Excorius orders the statue of Ahriman torn down. As it topples, every one Adeptus Mechanicus, nor their Relictor allies survive. 34th Millennium. Circa 1 of the 34th Millennium. The Fourth Black Crusade of War Master Abaddon. Abaddon leads the charge against the adamantium gates of the famously unbreachable citadel of the Cromarch upon Elfanor. Only 1 in 10 of Abaddon's spearhead reaches the gates before they are trapped by heavy bolter fire. The gates are harder than diamond, but they split apart like cordwood before Abaddon's dolorous blow. The Chaos Space Marines and their demonic allies feast upon the Cromarch and his kin that same night. 764 of the 34th Millennium. The Shattering. Craftworld Lugganath comes under vicious attack from a psychically shielded fleet of Emperor's children. The Eldar vessels destroy the first wave of fighters, but the sheer number of Chaos Space Marines drop ships forces a breach in the Craftworld's defenses. After a bitterly fought boarding action, a teleport relay is established in the Plaza of Reflection, and the Emperor's children begin to deploy en masse. The Eldar seal off the breach with surgical precision, but they realize their foes' true intent too late. At the heart of the plaza, several hundred noise marines combined their sonic weapons into a psychic explosion that thrums louder and louder throughout Lugganath's psychoplastic architecture, until the air fills with screams. Cracks appear across the Craftworld's sweeping arches, and the thin spires crumble down onto the raging battle below. '35th Millennium. 437 of the 35th Millennium. The Red Dawn of Iriad IV. Iriad IV, a fortified industrial world on the cusp of the Eye of Terror, is invaded by a tide of world eaters. Captain Rebellion of the Ebon Knights chapter leads his men against his traitor cousins in a bitterly fought war that sees the corpse count rise spectacularly quickly. The battle tears across the planet until less than a company of warriors remain on either side. Whilst the World Eaters do not care that so many of their number has fallen, Captain Rebellion is driven to desperation by the loss of so many of his men, and mutters a prayer into the night. Hours later, covered head to toe in blood, Rebellion stalks out from the shadows with a dripping chainsword in either hand. His men shout in fierce joy as the last of the World Eaters falls, though their victory soon turns to ashes. Unstoppable, Captain Rebellion hacks a swath through the remaining Ebon Knights. He does not stop there. The rampaging captain attacks anything that moves, including his own reflection. District after district is depopulated as Rebellions packed with corn bears slow but terrible fruit. Iriad IV's remaining population is evacuated, and the planet is declared Perditas. '36th Millennium. 437 of the 36th Millennium. The Green Death. The infected orc warbands invading the ecclesiarchy world of Sanctia evince a terrible new barbarism. They fall upon the planet's defenders and consume them bodily, devouring the living and the dead alike, as if compelled by a demonic hunger. Bloating and swelling, the orcs become obese monstrosities that can move only at a snail's pace. Puzzled by this strange reprieve, reprieve, the Adeptus Auroritas systematically purge the orcs with flame and bolter. It is then that Mortarion and his Death Guard make planetfall. The skeletally thin demon Primarch looms over the bodies of the orcs as he stalks to the front lines. At his passing, each orc bursts apart in a shower of foul fluids, and dozens of nurglings spill out from their remains to follow their master. Sanctia falls to the green death within 20 hours of Mortarion's arrival, and the plague spreads across the Ecclesiarchield system at an unstoppable pace. 836 of the 36th millennium, the Great Degeneration. After the unremitting violence of the Xenocidal Coitus campaign, the Annihilator's chapter finally succumbs to blood psychosis. Those of the chapter still able to act rationally gather at their fortress monastery in the hope of finding absolution. Instead of redeeming their sins, however, their corrupted chaplains lead them in an ancient ritual, leaving their souls wide open to demonic influence. Every member of the chapter is possessed over the course of a single moonlit night, shifting forms and devolving into armored half-demon monstrosities. Calling themselves the Beasts of Annihilation, the Brethren go to war again, though this time it is the Imperium that feels their wrath. 37th Millennium. 321 of the 37th Millennium to 112 of the 38th Millennium. The Abyssal Crusade. Warp storm Dionys rips across the galaxy, its ghastly energies polluting a wide swath of star systems. In addition to billions of Imperial citizens, no less than 30 Space Marine chapters are judged by the charismatic Saint Basilius to be tainted. The ecclesiarchal lord gives a choice to those so judged: seek redemption in the Eye of Terror, or be exterminated. Without exception, the judged chapters choose to embark upon a redemptive crusade aimed at purging the demon worlds of the Eye of Terror. Within that great warp rift, some of the chapters are lost forever or destroyed, and a few turn renegade in order to survive. The most resolute return to the Imperium nearly 800 years later, and discover that their accuser, Saint Basilius himself, is a servant of chaos. The corrupted saint's demise is swift and bloody. 772 of the 37th Millennium, Molochai's Folly. Lured by promises of power, Sevastos Molochai, the power-hungry planetary governor of Urska's Sol Tetra, makes long-range contact with a coven of word-bearers Chaos Space Marines. Within 8 weeks, his planet is turned from a thriving industrial world into a demon-infested nightmare. Circa 811 of the 37th Millennium, the 7th Black Crusade of War Master Abaddon. During the course of the Ghost War, the Blood Angels join in battle against Abaddon's horde upon the world of Macken. The Despoiler mercilessly singles out the sons of Sanguinius, personally leading a band of Khorne berserkers in a gore-splattered assault against the Blood Angels' devastator positions. Though only a handful of the traitors survive the teeth of the Loyalists' guns, the Blood Angels' assault troops are unable to reclaim the bodies of their fallen brothers, which are desecrated by the Despoiler's frenzied warband. 38th Millennium. 573 of the 38th millennium, the 9th Black Crusade of War Master Abaddon. Intending to bring about the demise of the naval fortress Cancephalus, Abaddon leads his 9th Black Crusade against the heaving populations of nearby Anticanus. Monarchive, the seat of Anticanus' imperial commander, is besieged by Abaddon's vanguard. The Black Legionnaires burn and butcher their way through the lower levels, whilst Abaddon himself storms its inner sanctums. The hive populations are slowly drained dry. By the time the Imperial Guard from Cancephalus reinforces the desperate survivors, Abaddon and his favored legionnaires have already left orbit, dropping a dozen cyclonic warheads onto the ruins of Monarchive as a last gesture of contempt. The 17-year war that ensues robs both Anticanus and Cancephalus of their most precious resource, manpower. Without the fleets of Cancephalus to stop him, Abaddon is able to ravage the rest of the sector at will. I think... Oh no, we have one more until we get to the 41st millennium. So we're going to read this last one, and then we're going to bring this video to a close, but I do want to say something first about that last one. I think they may have been using the wrong word. I don't think legionnaires is the appropriate term. I think it would be legionaries. But I'd have to look that up. I know I've looked up the difference before, I just can't remember. Anyways. 40th millennium. 198 to 485 of the 40th millennium. Double-edged swords. For more than a dozen generations, agents of the Alpha Legion infiltrate the hive slums of Gorstengrad, homeworld of the Emperor's swords. Through subtle manipulation of the dominant sects and gangs, the Alpha Legion seed potential future space marines with all manner of deviant philosophies and subconscious triggers. Though many of these brainwashed youths are rejected by librarians and chaplains, some are recruited into the chapter nonetheless, a lurking threat unknown even to the recruits themselves. Almost 3 centuries later, the Alpha Legion mounts a full-scale invasion of Gorstengrad. They are met in open battle by the Emperor's swords. The Alpha Legion employ hypnotic and disorienting psychic attacks, releasing the nascent personalities of their unknowing infiltrators amongst the defending battle brothers. Within hours, the chapter disintegrates into a morass of battling factions, some of which join forces with the invaders. The loyalist Emperor's swords are entirely destroyed, Gorstengrad is razed, and the gene seed stores of the chapter are stolen. The Alpha Legion withdraws to the eastern fringe, its numbers swollen with new renegades, still covered in the blood of their brethren. There are quite a few events of the 41st millennium, so we're going to get to those next time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. Both of those things are really helpful. The other thing that you guys can do if you want to support these videos is leave a comment. Engagement of any kind is good for videos, obviously. Thumbs down are worse than a like, but any engagement is good, so please, if you like this stuff, engage with it, and I like talking to you guys in the comments. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.